At 81, Diana Ross lives in a world most fans would never recognize. In 2002, the world saw her mugshot after a DUI arrest that revealed blood alcohol levels twice the legal limit. But that public humiliation was just the beginning. Her brother was found murdered in Detroit. Her fairy tale marriage ended when she learned about her separation on live TV. The legendary star who gave us countless hits now battles demons that fame couldn't fix. Today, we're uncovering the heartbreaking truth about how Diana Ross really lives. Diana Ross's story began with a simple mistake that shaped her entire life. She was born on March 26, 1944, in Detroit, Michigan. Her parents named her Diane Ernestine Earl Ross. But when the birth certificate was typed up, it said Diana instead of Diane. It was just a small clerical error, but it changed everything. Diana kept the name. It had a certain grace and power that seemed to fit her future perfectly. The name Diana Ross would soon be seen on more than 100 million records, magazine covers all over the world, and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Diana herself often laughed at how this tiny accident became her identity. Some even believed it was fate, as if that name was always meant for the girl who would become the Queen of Motown. Diana's childhood was shaped by the place where she lived and the people around her. Her house at 635 Belmont Street was in Detroit's North End. Right next door lived a boy who would one day be a Motown legend too, William "Smokey" Robinson. The two families were close. Diana and Smokey would play and sing together, not knowing that both of them would one day become famous. They shared dreams of making it big. Those childhood moments turned into a deep friendship that lasted for years. Later, when they were both stars, they even had a secret romance, hidden from the world. Growing up in that neighborhood, surrounded by music and struggle, gave them both the fire they needed to succeed. But Diana's early years weren't easy. When she was 7, her world fell apart. Her mother, Ernestine, became very sick with tuberculosis. In those days, that illness was often deadly. Diana and her siblings had to leave their home and move to Bessemer, Alabama, to live with relatives. It was a painful time. She was far from her parents and everything familiar. The fear of losing her mother stayed with her, but instead of breaking her, it made her stronger. She learned to face hardship head on, and that strength stayed with her as she chased her dreams. On her 14th birthday in 1958, her family moved into the Brewster Douglas housing projects. These were tough places. The buildings were crowded. Crime and poverty were part of daily life. But for Diana, the projects became a place where ambition was born. She looked around and knew she had to escape, had to aim higher. And she wasn't alone. Other kids in the projects, like Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson, shared the same dream. They would soon join her on the road to stardom. The tough world around them pushed them to work harder, sing better, and never give up. By 1959, Diana was just 15 years old, but already thinking big. That year, she joined Mary Wilson, Florence Ballard, and Betty McGlone to form the Primettes. They wanted to be the female version of the Primes, the group that would later become the Temptations. These girls were fearless. They practiced for hours, sang at talent shows, and even sneaked into the Fox Theater to watch the stars perform. They soaked up every note, every move. They wanted success, and they were ready to fight for it. In 1960, they took their chance. They went to Berry Gordy at Motown Records and asked for a deal. Gordy saw their talent, but told them to come back after finishing high school. Many would have quit, but not Diana and her friends. They kept singing, kept pushing. They recorded a single for a small label and kept knocking on Motown's door. Diana even waited for hours at Hitsville, USA, hoping Gordy would listen. And in January 1961, their hard work paid off. Gordy signed them. It was the start of something huge. But there was one more change. Gordy didn't like the name the Primettes. He asked for new ideas. The girls made a list, but Gordy chose the Supremes. Diana didn't like it at first. She thought it sounded too fancy, but soon that name became legendary. In March 1961, they released their first single as the Supremes. Success didn't come right away, but by 1964, they had their first #1 hit, Where Did Our Love Go? The name, the group, and Diana herself became part of American music history. In August 1964, the Supremes were still struggling. People at Motown had even started calling them the No-Hit Supremes, because they had already released 8 singles that went nowhere. But everything changed when they recorded a song that almost wasn't theirs at all. Where Did Our Love Go shot to the top of the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed at #1 for 2 weeks, from August 16 to August 29. What makes this so surprising is that the song was first offered to another Motown group, the Marvelettes. They thought it was corny and said no. The Supremes didn't want it either. Even Mary Wilson tried to turn it down, but Motown gave them no choice. The simple beat, helped by the sound of Motown's effects man Mike Valvano stomping his feet, made it catchy. That song changed everything. It gave them their first #1 hit. It was the start of 5 #1s in a row. It made Diana Ross the star of the group. It helped Motown prove it could create crossover stars. The song became so important that it was later ranked among Rolling Stone's 500 greatest songs of all time. It was even added to the National Recording Registry to be saved for future generations. From that moment, the Supremes became unstoppable. Between 1964 and 1969, they reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 a total of 12 times. No American girl group had ever done that before. It all started with Where Did Our Love Go? The hits kept coming. Baby Love, Come See About Me, Stop, In the Name of Love, and You Can't Hurry Love. During those years, only the Beatles sold more records. The Supremes managed to get at least one #1 song every single year, even as they competed with the British invasion. They sold more than 46 million singles, with 34 million of those sold in the US alone. The 5 #1s in a row set a record for girl groups. They weren't just making music, they were breaking barriers. At a time when America was fighting over civil rights, the Supremes became symbols of beauty, success, and hope. They were Motown's top act and the most successful female group in history. It wasn't until decades later that Mariah Carey passed their record. But behind the glamour, things were getting tense. Diana Ross began to take over. She started answering questions meant for Mary Wilson or Florence Ballard. By 1965, she stopped calling herself Diane, the name her friends knew, and started using Diana. She quietly began asking for more money than the others. Many believed this was because of her close ties to Gordy, the head of Motown. She made sure to stand out, wearing different clothes, demanding the center spot on stage, and sometimes arriving at venues on her own, with Gordy by her side. These actions hurt the group's bond. Mary Wilson later said Diana always wanted to be the star and would do anything to get there. That included pushing for more money and more control. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1967, the group's name was officially changed to Diana Ross and the Supremes. Gordy made the decision, just like he had done with Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. But this time, it felt cruel. Mary and Florence felt like backup singers in their own group. Things got worse. Florence Ballard was replaced by Cindy Birdsong after a sad night in Las Vegas. Florence found extra gowns waiting for her replacement and went on stage drunk. People began whispering that Diana would go solo soon. And in 1970, she did. Mary Wilson later said that changing the group's name was the worst thing that ever happened to them. It broke their unity and started a string of fights and exits. Diana Ross's journey to superstardom was tangled with secrets, ambition, and complicated relationships. At the heart of it was her hidden affair with Gordy, the powerful founder of Motown. It all began in the mid-1960s, when Ross was becoming the shining face of the Supremes and Gordy was still married. Their connection was more than just personal. It changed the course of music history. People close to Motown saw how Ross's charm and closeness to Gordy helped her rise. Gordy himself admitted they were the same kind of people, both hungry for success. By 1967, the world could see the shift when Gordy renamed the group Diana Ross and the Supremes. That change wasn't just about a name. It allowed Motown to charge higher fees and made Ross the undeniable star. The secret relationship stayed hidden from the public, but insiders knew the truth. On August 14, 1970, Ross had a daughter, Rhonda. Even though she was married to another man, Rhonda's biological father was Gordy. This affair didn't just cause whispers. It shook Motown's power structure, pushing Ross's bandmates aside as she climbed higher. One of the most painful moments in this story came in July 1967. That's when Florence Ballard, who had once led the Supremes, was pushed out. Ballard had struggled with depression, drinking, and health issues as Ross took center stage. Motown claimed she was simply exhausted, but the truth was harsher. Gordy had already chosen Cindy Birdsong to replace her. After a final, heartbreaking performance in Las Vegas in June 1967, Ballard's fate was sealed. On July 1st, just one day after turning 24, Ballard showed up to perform but was too drunk to finish. Gordy sent her home and made Birdsong permanent. Ballard was forced to sign a contract for a one-time payment of around $139,000, worth over $1 million today. But that deal robbed her of future earnings and even the right to use the Supremes' name. Her solo career never took off. She fell into poverty and died at just 32, her brilliance overshadowed by the cruel way she was discarded. Behind the dazzling smile, Diana Ross's ambition often left others in the dust. Mary Wilson, her bandmate, spoke of how Ross made sure she always grabbed the spotlight. She would find out what the others planned to wear and pick something flashier. On stage, she would block the others with outstretched arms so that all eyes stayed on her. She refused to share costumes and ran to Gordy with complaints, using her special bond with him to get what she wanted. Ross didn't stop at that. She watched other groups, memorized their dance moves, and used them at Supremes shows as if they were her own. This hunger for attention caused deep rifts, helping to tear the group apart. Ross's power didn't come from Gordy alone. She also had a secret affair with Smokey Robinson, even though he was married. Robinson later said it lasted a year and that it was beautiful, but Ross ended it because she respected his wife. There were also rumors of a romance with Brian Holland of the famed songwriting team. These ties weren't just about love. They gave Ross influence that few could match. Many felt that she used these relationships to secure her rise, leaving a trail of hurt behind. The final night of Diana Ross and the Supremes came on January 14, 1970, at the New Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas. The show started at 11:54 p.m. and carried into the early morning. The crowd was packed with stars like Marvin Gaye and Smokey Robinson. The trio sang their hits one last time, ending with "Someday We'll Be Together." That song, ironically, hadn't included Wilson or Birdsong in its recording. As the night closed, Ross introduced Jean Terrell as the new lead. Just 6 days later, she was recording her first solo single. The moment marked the end of an era and the start of something new. When Ross released "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" in July 1970, it took the world by storm. Gordy had doubted the song's potential, but radio DJs played it anyway. Fans loved it. On September 19, 1970, it hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, staying there for 3 weeks. The song brought Ross her first Grammy nomination and helped Motown dominate the charts that year. With 18 weeks at the top, it showed the world that Ross didn't need the Supremes to succeed. Her first solo concert came on March 8, 1970, at Caesars Monticello in Framingham, Massachusetts. It was a key test, just before her big Vegas residency. Strangely, no recording of that performance exists, not even a bootleg or photo worth noting. That missing piece adds mystery to her early solo career. Fans can only imagine what that night sounded and looked like. When Diana Ross stepped onto the big screen for the first time in 1972's Lady Sings the Blues, no one expected what came next. Here was Ross, famous as the stylish lead singer of the Supremes, suddenly transformed into Billie Holiday. She had no acting background, yet what she delivered was powerful, heartbreaking, and unforgettable. So powerful, in fact, that the Academy couldn't ignore her. In 1973, at the 45th Oscars, she earned a nomination for Best Actress. That moment shook Hollywood to its core. She was up against Liza Minnelli, who won for Cabaret, But Ross's performance was what people couldn't stop talking about. The film received 5 nominations in total, but hers was the one that truly mattered. The industry had expected someone like Diahann Carroll or Cicely Tyson to land such a role, but Ross proved everyone wrong. Her performance raised the bar for black actresses and seemed to promise a brilliant film career ahead. Yet, strangely, that would be the only Oscar nomination she would ever receive. Just a few years later, tragedy struck in a way that left Ross forever changed. In February 1976, Florence Ballard died at just 32. Once the most powerful voice in the Supremes, Ballard's story had turned from triumph to heartbreak. After being forced out of the group in 1967, she battled poverty, legal troubles with Motown, and personal demons. Alcoholism and depression consumed her. The cause of death was coronary artery thrombosis, but everyone knew the real cause was deeper: a life crushed by pain. When Ross arrived at Ballard's funeral at New Bethel Baptist Church, about 5,000 people filled the space. Some greeted her with boos, blaming her for what had happened to Florence. Still, Ross went inside, sat with Ballard's family, and comforted her youngest daughter, Lisa. A single photo of that moment spread across the world. It captured the deep sadness and complicated bond the two women had shared. After the success of Lady Sings the Blues, Ross aimed even higher, but the dreams didn't last. In 1975, Mahogany hit theaters. The critics were brutal. Some even said the reviews were the worst they'd ever seen. The film's theme song became a hit, but the movie itself left audiences cold. Then came The Wiz in 1978. It was supposed to be huge. The budget was an astonishing $24 million, the largest for a musical at that time. The sets were grand. The cast included Michael Jackson, and the dance scenes were massive, with 400 dancers performing on a bridge between the Twin Towers. But it flopped. The film made only $13.6 million, losing $10.4 million in the end. The failure didn't just hurt Ross. It gave Hollywood an excuse to stop backing big black-led projects. For Ross, the fall was swift and final. The movie world that had once seemed hers had slipped away. Away from the screen, another kind of heartbreak shook her. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed on April 4, 1968, Ross felt as if the world had crumbled. The very next day, she appeared on The Tonight Show, changing her lyrics mid-song to honor King's words. The audience wept. Years later, she helped organize a tribute concert for King at the National Mall in 1981. In her own writings, Ross spoke of the sorrow she felt for Coretta Scott King and Jackie Kennedy, two women who knew the true cost of greatness. That loss changed Ross. It deepened her sense of purpose and shaped her music and activism for the rest of her life. But even as she tried to live with grace, secrets and scandals swirled around her. In 2023, Smokey Robinson revealed that he and Ross had shared a hidden love affair during the 1960s. It lasted a year while he was married to Claudette Rogers. Robinson, 83 when he told the story, called it beautiful and said he still loved Ross to this day. The romance had started as they worked together. Ross ended it, unable to bear the guilt, but the bond between them remained. The news surprised fans who had always seen Ross as someone who kept her private life tightly controlled. Ross's marriage to Robert Silverstein seemed like a fairy tale at first. They met in a store in Los Angeles. She was shopping for a gift for Berry Gordy. Silverstein was younger and new to the business. They married in January 1971 and soon had 2 daughters, Tracy and Chudney. But the marriage was filled with tension. Ross's past with Gordy still cast a shadow, and rumors of ongoing affairs followed her. When they wed, Ross was already pregnant. That child, Rhonda, was at the center of a secret that would last for over a decade. Rhonda believed Silverstein was her father. Only at age 13 did she learn the truth. Her real father was Berry Gordy. Even strangers had noticed how much she resembled him. The revelation didn't change Silverstein's love for Rhonda. He stayed in her life as a father, no matter what. Diana Ross's second marriage felt like a dream come true at first. In 1985, during a vacation in the Bahamas, she met Arne Næss Jr. He was a Norwegian shipping tycoon and mountaineer with a fortune of more than $500 million by the mid-1980s. They seemed worlds apart. Diana was a glamorous Motown superstar. Arne was a rugged adventurer who had led a Norwegian expedition to Mount Everest that same year. But their connection was instant. They married on February 1st, 1986. The wedding took place at a Swiss abbey overlooking Lake Geneva. It was grand and magical. Princess Christina of Sweden was a bridesmaid. Stevie Wonder performed. The place was filled with over 240 guests, including royals and stars. The cost? Nearly $1 million. Soon, they welcomed 2 sons. Ross Arne was born in 1987, and Evan Olav followed in 1988. For a while, they made their transatlantic life work. Arne ran his business in London. Diana raised their children in the U.S. She called him the love of my life. For a time, it truly seemed that way. But the fairy tale ended in heartbreak. In early 1999, during a TV interview in Norway, Arne casually said he and Diana were separated. Diana had no idea. She learned about her own separation from the media. The world watched as she was blindsided and humiliated. Their marriage had always been unusual. He lived in London, she in Connecticut. But this was a cruel blow. Friends said this was when Diana's emotional struggles and drinking really took hold. Arne didn't even have the decency to tell her privately. It was the start of a painful and very public downfall. Then came the final betrayal. Rumors spread that Arne was seeing another woman. It was true. The woman was Camilla Astrup, a Norwegian model and single mother. In July 2000, Camilla announced she was pregnant with Arne's child. The baby was due that September. The news shattered Diana. Any hope of fixing her marriage was gone. Camilla herself admitted it was quite shocking and that people reacted badly. Arne stayed silent. The press had a field day. The timeline of his affair and the depth of his betrayal were all anyone could talk about. For Diana, it was heartbreak on top of heartbreak. The divorce was final, but the pain lingered. Nearly 15 years of marriage ended in disaster. Diana became withdrawn. She turned to alcohol. In May 2002, she checked into a 30-day rehab program. She tried to heal, but it wasn't easy. The media watched her every move. Things only got worse in 2004. Arne died in a mountaineering accident in South Africa. Even though they were divorced, Diana grieved deeply. She called it a very difficult day for her and their sons. The dream that began with a magical wedding ended in tragedy and loss. That wasn't the only dark chapter. On December 30th, 2002, Diana hit rock bottom. She was arrested for DUI in Tucson, Arizona. Her blood alcohol level was 0.20%, more than twice the legal limit. Her mugshot was everywhere. Police released the arrest video. She had been swerving on the road. She laughed and fell during the sobriety tests. She couldn't recite the alphabet or tell the time. The court sentenced her to 2 days in jail, a year of probation, and an $850 fine. It was a public spectacle. Her struggles were laid bare for the world to see. Before that, in May 2002, Diana had tried to get help. She entered Promises Rehab in Malibu. It cost $20,000 a month. Her family urged her to go, but she left after 3 weeks to tour. She went back in August. The cycle of rehab and relapse was heartbreaking. Her glamour couldn't hide the pain anymore. There was more tragedy. On June 22, 1996, Diana's brother, Arthur T. Boy Ross, was found dead. He and his wife had been murdered in a Detroit suburb. Their bodies lay undiscovered for weeks. They were suffocated with plastic bags. The scene was horrific. Arthur had battled addiction. His choices had led him down a dark path. Diana was on tour in Japan and couldn't attend the funeral. She sent her daughter, Tracy, to read a letter. In it, she wrote of her broken heart and sorrow over her brother's choices. The guilt haunted her. She withdrew further, carrying the weight of loss and regret. Diana's battles weren't just personal. She gained a reputation as a tough boss. In one shocking move, she fired her entire staff. She even wrote a letter bad-mouthing 8 of them. She warned others not to hire them. The letter circulated widely. It wrecked careers. It also led to lawsuits. In 1983, 2 former employees sued her for millions. One suit sought $1.25 million. Another asked for $2 million total. Some cases were dismissed. Others led to costly settlements. Diana paid dearly, not just in money, but in reputation. There was also the unforgettable moment at the 1999 MTV VMAs. Diana playfully jiggled Lil' Kim's exposed breast on live TV. Some laughed, others cringed. It became one of the most replayed moments in VMA history. Even Mary J. Blige was pissed about it. Lil' Kim called it legendary. The world kept talking about it for years. When Michael Jackson died in 2009, his will named Diana as a backup guardian for his children. But Diana declined. She supported the decision to let Michael's nephew co-guard the kids. She believed they belonged with family. Even in that, Diana showed how complex her life had become. Behind the star power and fame was a woman who had loved deeply, lost painfully, and struggled with demons few could see.